We used to have a typical rural life in the creek, fishing, rafting, swimming, playing cowboys and Indians. Maureen was always the Indian because she had plat. We always knew Maureen would do well in whatever field she chose.
She's a fantastic person. She's very thoughtful and a great researcher, but she has this fertile imagination which you need as an artist, I think. So she sort of plays with words, but also with ideas and of course with weaving.
When we were growing up, we always knew she had an interest in all things Māori, but it's not till reading at her notes and her proposals and her concept writings, because she's a really good writer, that's when I discovered that she'd felt Māori growing up in a largely Pākehā world and was exploring what that meant to her. That's kind of informed itself in the work that she does too.
Watching my mother speak and then Maureen giving an idea and then looking at it in a different angle, whatever the project was. It was a reciprocation of great ideas and creativity. One of the latest pieces she's done with the Toitu to Toi Ora, that was just phenomenal. It just takes your breath away. And what I like about Maureen is she passes that innovation and the potentiality of creativity, she passes that on.
Ko tēnei taku mihi atu ki a koe, e te kaurangi, e te hoa, e te rangatira, e Maureen. Ka nui ngā mihi aroha ki a koe mō tēnei tohu whakamiharo.
In 1998, I was participating in a big symposium in Liverpool, which was the International Symposium of Electronic Art. People don't know that about me, but I was doing a thing called Digital String Games,
wow,
which followed on from the String Games, which opened at Te Papa earlier that year.
Okay.
I landed in London, and I knew that Te Māori, it was just called Māori, it wasn't called Te Māori, had opened, and I was going to be staying in a university student residence in Russell Square, but I had to fill in time, so I went straight to the museum, and one of the first things that I saw was the Rā, because it was breathtaking. It stood about 4.6 metres high, as if it were sailing, and I had never seen anything like that.
Do we know how it got there in the first place?
They didn't at that stage. I think there's been more research done and there's more possibilities. Some people like to think that was collected on Cook's voyages, but everybody likes to think that. and I have my doubts about that.
Te Rangi Hiroa, Sir Peter Buck, famously, I think, challenged Māori weavers to study the Rā.
Yes.
And bring back the knowledge and how to make it again.
Yes.
Have others tried before you? I mean,
not that we know of. I've got one of my weavers sitting out here, and I don't know where she is. But we don't know of anybody who has attempted to create a Rā following the same elements that are in this one, and they'll be there for a purpose, to do with aerodynamics and the way the wind moves across. Yes.
That's the thing that gets me about it. I mean, it's a beautiful object when you look at
Yes.
I've only seen images of it, of course. And you start to appreciate the intricacy of the weaving, but also the fact that this is a practical tool. It has to work.
Yes.
So in a sense, it's it's a teacher, an inanimate teacher.
It's definitely a teacher, and the way that it's evolved is, I did try to get my students while I was still teaching material culture to research it. It's such a big project that there couldn't be time for a student to do it as in an undergraduate program.
Yeah.
But they did come up with some really interesting things about. One of them talked to somebody who was interested in Pacific sails and learned quite a lot. And it wasn't until I actually left the university and I still wanted to, see this happen. And I started going to a weaving group up in Hokianga, where I come from, and where I went and lived eventually. And I sort of passed that kaupapa on to the weavers there. And I was invited to go back to the British Museum to run some classes, and I said, oh, well, I've been twice. I actually went and saw the Ra twice. Another time when I went back for an exhibition in the Cambridge Museum, Pacific Styles, I made time to go and visit the Ra again, and this time I got some really good photographs. And somebody at the museum had unrolled it for me completely and had a ladder there so that I could go up the ladder and photograph it. And
it must be starting to feel like an old friend.
It's definitely an old friend.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's how we all feel when we see it. It's very emotional to see something.
I mean, the emotion comes from, because you're studying how it's made, you're obviously thinking about the people that made it, the skill they had, where they came from. You know, without being corny, it does kind of become a cross-generational connection point, doesn't it?
It definitely does. And the weavers they've made a tauira and they've sailed it. So that's like the practice version, which wasn't full size. They've learnt a huge amount by doing that. It is their teacher. And the Ra itself, when you look at it and think it's perfect, when you look at it closely, you can see that it's not made by one person, it's made by a team of people, which is how I had thought. When I got back, the head of anthropology wanted me to make one so he could test it out in the wind, whatever it is in the engineering, to sort of prove his wind tunnel, you know, to prove his theories about migration and how people would have used the wind.
So one of the ultimate, aims is...
Our ultimate aim is to have them on the water, you know, at places like Waitangi, back in the Hokianga Harbour, not in museums. We see them as something that's living. We want to, once we've got it, share that knowledge with weaving groups. We've got a group already down in Petone practicing just little bits and pieces. They're ready to get started. So that's our dream.
So this will carry on?
Absolutely.
The knowledge has not been lost?
It's 100 years this December that Te Rangihiroa issued that challenge, and we plan to meet it by this December to have the full
Look, I have absolutely no doubt you will meet the deadline, and what an amazing centenary that'll be. So congratulations on that. Congratulations on this award. How's it feel being back at the old university after all these years?
Well, I've been back there working with a group of students to make a big work in the atrium of the new part of the engineering school. And how that felt was like a door opening almost into my past, but another opportunity to stretch my thinking and to work with materials and technology that I'm not familiar with, and to work again with students, because I missed them when I left. That's why I started mentoring other people. But with the students, anything could happen. You know, there's huge potential for where we could go with it. And so that's exciting.
Well, all I can say is lucky students. Congratulations, Maureen Lander, everybody.
Thank you.